the 13th of June, 2005. Santa Maria, California. A man walks out of a courthouse surrounded by security and flashing cameras. He's wearing a white armband. His eyes are somewhere else entirely, like he's not really there. This is Michael Jackson, the same man who just 12 years earlier performed at the Super Bowl halftime show to 133 million viewers, the most watched halftime in history at the time. The same man who sold 70 million copies of a single album. The same man who changed the way music videos were made, the way pop stars moved, the way an entire generation understood what it meant to be a performer. And he just spent 5 months on trial, facing 20 years in prison. So, how do you go from being the biggest star on the planet to standing in a courthouse trying to stay out of jail? That's what we're here to figure out. Because the story of Michael Jackson isn't just a music story. It's a story about fame, about the media, about what happens when the world decides it's done with you even before you're done. Let's rewind all the way back. Gary, Indiana. Michael Joseph Jackson is born into a 2-bedroom house on Jackson Street, the 8th of 10 children. His mother, Catherine, plays piano and aspires to be a country singer. His father, Joe, works at a steel plant by day and plays guitar in a local band by night. By the time Michael is 6 years old, he's performing not at school plays, in clubs, on stages. Joe Jackson had formed a group with his sons, and he ran rehearsals with a belt in hand. Michael would later say his father physically and emotionally abused him during practice.
If he hit me, I would hit him back, which was terrible. And I would run around the house and hide and all that stuff.
That he performed out of fear as much as love. But here's the thing, the kid was extraordinary. Everyone could see it. By age 11, they'd signed to Motown. By 13, they had a #1 single. By the time Michael was a teenager, Rolling Stone was calling him a prodigy with overwhelming musical gifts.
The dancingest Jackson.
And Michael Jackson.
The skinniest Jackson.
And Randy Jackson.
The cutest Jackson. Let on me, mama.
Then came the solo career, Off the Wall in 1979, and then Thriller. The best-selling album of all time, 70 million copies, 7 top 10 singles from a single album, a record that stood for decades, 8 Grammy Awards in one night. The music video for Thriller literally changed what a music video could be. It had a budget, a plot, a full cast. It was a short film. Nobody had done that before. On the 25th of March 1983, Michael Jackson performed Billie Jean on the Motown 25 special in front of 47 million people. That was the night he did the moonwalk on live television for the first time. The New York Times wrote, "In the world of pop music, there is Michael Jackson and there is everybody else." That wasn't hype. That was just accurate. By the mid-1980s, he had the highest royalty rate in the music industry. He co-wrote We Are the World with Lionel Richie. He bought the publishing rights to most of the Beatles' catalog, outbidding Paul McCartney himself. He had 40 security guards patrolling his ranch. He built a personal theme park at his home. He wasn't just a pop star, he was a phenomenon. And for a while, everything seemed invincible. But here's where it gets complicated. Because somewhere in the mid-80s, the story started to change, and not because of anything Michael actually did. His skin was changing color, slowly, noticeably, publicly, and the tabloids who were already circling went wild. He was bleaching himself, he wanted to be white, he was trying to erase who he was. His dermatologist diagnosed him with vitiligo in 1986, a real documented medical condition where the skin loses its pigment in patches. He also had lupus. He used makeup and prescription creams to even out the blotches, but by the time the medical facts came out, the narrative was already set.
The fact that the color of your skin is obviously different than it was when you were younger.
Yes.
And so I think it has caused a great deal of speculation and controversy as to what you have done or are doing. Are you bleaching your skin? And is your skin lighter because you don't like being black?
Okay, number one, this is the situation. I have a skin disorder that destroys the pigmentation of the skin. It's something that I cannot help. Okay, but when people make up stories that I don't want to be who I am, it hurts me.
And then the stories just kept coming. He was sleeping in a hyperbaric chamber to slow aging. He'd offered to buy the bones of the elephant man. He was injecting estrogen to keep his voice high. Almost none of it was verified. Some of it was later traced back to his own team leaking stories to stay in the press. But it didn't matter, because once a tabloid puts a picture on a front page, the correction never gets the same coverage. Then, in January 1984, something actually happened. Michael and his brothers were filming a Pepsi commercial at the Shrine Auditorium in LA. Pyrotechnics misfired, his hair caught fire on camera in front of a full audience. He suffered second-degree burns to his scalp. To deal with the pain and the reconstructive surgeries that followed, he was prescribed painkillers. Nobody talked about that at the time. But it matters, because the dependency that started that day never really went away. By the late 80s, Michael Jackson was still the biggest star in the world. But there was this other version of him being constructed in the press, weird, eccentric, broken, strange. And once that version existed, it was very hard to kill. Now we get to the part of the story that defined everything else. Michael Jackson is at the absolute peak of his career. He's just performed at the Super Bowl. His Dangerous album is charting worldwide. He's giving interviews to Oprah, watched by 90 million people. And then the first allegation comes. A 13-year-old boy named Jordan Chandler, whose family had become close to Jackson, alleged that Jackson had sexually abused him. Jackson denied everything. What followed was messy and complicated. Jordan's father, Evan Chandler, was recorded weeks before the allegations became public, saying he had a carefully planned plot that would be a massacre for Jackson's career if he didn't settle. He initially demanded $20 million. Jackson refused. Prosecutors raided Neverland Ranch and found no incriminating evidence. The strip search conducted by police based on a description from the accuser reportedly did not match. Multiple grand juries were convened. No criminal charges were ever filed. The case was settled out of court in January 1994 for around $18 million over claims of negligence, not child abuse. The settlement document showed the Chandlers dropped the molestation allegations from their complaint. Jackson's team said it was cheaper to settle than to fight. Critics said an innocent man wouldn't pay that much. Neither side was entirely wrong. But that settlement, even without a conviction, changed the public perception permanently. Fast forward to 2002, a British journalist named Martin Bashir spent months following Jackson for a documentary. When it aired, it showed Jackson holding hands and discussing sleeping arrangements with a 12-year-old boy. Jackson said it was innocent. Bashir's framing suggested otherwise. That documentary triggered the second investigation. In December 2003, Jackson was formally charged with 7 counts of child molestation and 2 counts of giving alcohol to a minor. He pleaded not guilty to all of them. The trial ran for 5 months. The FBI had been investigating Jackson since the early 90s and released their files after his death. They found no evidence of criminal conduct. On the 13th of June 2005, the jury acquitted Michael Jackson on all 14 counts. Not on a technicality, not on a hung jury, acquitted. But you already know that by the time that verdict came in, the damage was done. The trial had been televised, his image had been on front pages for years, sponsors had dropped him, his health had deteriorated. He'd shown up to court in pajamas on one occasion because he said he'd been hospitalized. He won in the courtroom. But the court of public opinion had already moved on. After the acquittal, Michael Jackson left the country. He spent time in Bahrain, Ireland, and Las Vegas, essentially in exile from the life he'd built. He was broke, or close to it. Years of legal fees, lifestyle costs, and mismanagement had eaten through what should have been an untouchable fortune. He had debts running into hundreds of millions, and then in 2009, there was one last attempt. A comeback. 50 concerts at the O2 Arena in London called This Is It. Tickets sold out in minutes. The world, it seemed, was ready to welcome him back. Michael Jackson was rehearsing in Los Angeles on the night of the 24th of June, 2009. He died the following morning, June 25. His personal physician, Dr. Conrad Murray, had been administering propofol, a powerful surgical anesthetic, to help him sleep. Murray gave him a fatal dose. He was convicted of involuntary manslaughter in 2011. Michael Jackson was 50 years old. 2.5 billion people watched his memorial service. It was held at the Staples Center in Los Angeles, the same city where so much of his life had played out. 2.5 billion people. So, was justice ever served? In a legal sense, sort of. Conrad Murray went to prison. Jackson was acquitted of every charge against him. But the man who gave him the drugs that killed him was out in 2 years. And the years of media coverage, of front pages and tabloid stories and public mockery, nobody was ever held accountable for any of that. In the court of public opinion, it's still being argued. The allegations never went away, even after 2 acquittals and an FBI investigation that found nothing. New documentaries have reopened the conversation. His estate has disputed them. The debate continues. But here's what we do know. In 2024, 15 years after his death, half of Michael Jackson's music catalog was sold to Sony for $600 million, the largest music acquisition for a single artist in history. Every major pop artist working today, from Beyoncé to Bruno Mars to The Weeknd, has cited him as a direct influence. The moonwalk is still being replicated. Thriller is still being played at Halloween. Billie Jean still makes people stop whatever they're doing. The music outlasted everything they threw at him. And maybe that's the most complicated part of this story, because the art and the accusations exist at the same time, in the same person. There's no clean resolution, no moment where everything makes sense. What we're left with is a man who came from nothing, built something no one had ever built before, watched the world try to tear it apart, and then died before he got to find out if he could survive it. The man they tried to destroy.